All right, so as these results come in, it looks like people are appropriately excited, which is great. Great emotional regulation, everyone. And so buying clothing, it seems like if there's a good sale, and then the things that people take into consideration when buying is kind of all over the place, which is interesting. But it looks like price and buying in person versus online are the most considered. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. And Amna, if you would like to intro Jennifer.
So I am super, super excited to introduce Jennifer Ingram. She earned a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Fashion Design from Washington University in St. Louis, and a Master of Science in Apparel, Merchandising, and Design from Iowa State University. Her research interests include sustainability and social responsibility in small apparel firms, designing for niche markets and textile apparel prototype development. Ingram has worked in the apparel industry in the areas of design, product development, textile design, technical design, sample making, tailoring and alterations, merchandising, management, and consulting. She joined WashU Fashion Design faculty in 2011 and currently teaches Introduction to Fashion Design, Textile Design, Pattern Making and Production, Pattern Making Lab, Three-Dimensional Fashion Design, Capstone 1 and Capstone 2. So without further ado, Jennifer, please feel free to take the floor.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. The intro makes me sound so special. I appreciate the intro. I want to start my presentation and I'll go through just some of the agenda of what I'll talk about today. Let me get it going. So as Amna mentioned, I am a senior lecturer in the fashion design department here at Washington University. It's funny because a lot of people don't really know about us. Sometimes we're like a kept secret, but we've been around. I think we're going on our 99th year of existence, and we were kind of known as one of the first BFA fashion design departments, four-year university departments in the nation. So that's good. But that's just the background about the department, but I'll go into the topic of today. So some of the things I will cover, I talk about definitions of some of the terms, just because I know everybody can title sustainability in so many different ways. And I definitely want to make sure you understand the approach that I am talking about, as well as from a textile perspective, some of the terms used. Negative impacts of fibers, principles of selecting fibers, and then resources for purchasing textiles and clothing. So when it comes to definition of terms, let me minimize this over here. Okay, so a textile is typically, textiles can be anything that is a material base, but when we talk about it in reference to apparel, many times we use the term fabric or cloth. All fabrics are made from fibers, and fibers typically are the smallest hair-like substance used to make a textile. Fibers can be natural or man-made. So the process for making fabric starts with the fiber. Fibers are typically twisted and spun into yarns. The yarns are then either woven or knitted, and then that is what creates the base fabric. So there's different fiber types, two major categories that fibers are categorized into. One is natural, and natural fibers are made from plants or animals. Your man-made fibers, which is the other category, those are made from regenerated plants or chemicals. So underneath the natural category, the protein fibers, which are those made from animals, include wool, silk, and leather. And then those are further broken down into different types of wool, which those are listed on this slide. And then you have different types of silk, and then you also have different types of leather. And then your cellulose, which are typically fibers made from plants. The two typical fibers are cotton and linen. And again, there's that's broken down into different types of cotton and some of your different types of linen as well. So underneath the manufactured category, you have regenerated cellulose fibers. Sorry, I can't even get it out. Regenerated cellulose fibers. There's two different fibers that fall underneath that category of acetate and rayon. And then under your synthetics, there's polyester, nylon, spandex, acrylic, and imitation leather, which sometimes your vegan leathers fall in that category as well. Just to give you a little background of what regenerated means, these are fibers that are made from plants, but then they're broken down into chemical processing to be remade into new fibers. So the man-made or manufactured fibers all have a serious form of chemical processing to create the fibers. So just to give you a little background about the global consumption shares of fibers, this is a project I do with my classes. On maybe the first day of class, I have each student kind of take a look at the tag on their clothing and just see what fibers they're wearing. A lot of times we purchase apparel without really looking at the content. It's more about the aesthetics. Is it the right color? Is it a style you want? And then after you go through aesthetics, you go into fit, you try it on. Does it look and feel good? And then sometimes it's the last thing you even think about, if you even look at it, is the fibers that you're wearing. So just to give you a background about how much of in the textile industry, what fibers are mostly purchased, polyester is number one. You see it taking up 58% of the shares. And then second is cotton. And then within that, there are other fibers that are purchased. So I just kind of want to go over some of the negative impacts, environmental specifically, of fibers. Certain fibers have high water consumption, high energy consumption. Some fibers use non-renewable natural resources. Some have high toxic chemical usage, high waste, and low animal welfare. And I'll break this down even further when I get to the next few slides. So when it comes to principles for selecting fibers, I think one of the challenges people have run into is like, oh, what fiber do I select? And there's no clear-cut answer for that, because every fiber has its trade-off. There's some good things, there's some bad things about every fiber. So it's important to you as the consumer, or you as the person who may be purchasing fibers, to understand what impacts you want to make a difference in and how you want to make an impact. And that will drive which fibers you choose over others. So I'll go through kind of some of the benefits or the trade-offs of each fiber in some of the next few slides. One other thing that I want to talk about is the topic of sustainable textiles. I know many times that is the way that people approach labeling it. And in my opinion, I feel that a sustainable textile has to meet the triple bottom line, which means that it needs to capture all of these three pillars of sustainability. It needs to be environmental friendly, which means that the textile is produced, used, and disposed of in a way that minimizes harm to the environment. I think it needs to be socially responsible, so that it should support fair trade, it should support charity and employee welfare. And then also I feel it needs to still be economically viable to help companies to survive as a business. And I kind of do this hierarchy of how sustainability is integrated into textile purchases from a business standpoint, from an industry standpoint, how it has traditionally been done. And a lot of times companies choose fabrics based off of cost. Naturally, they're cost driven to drive profits. And then when people say they are sustainable, the first route they typically go is social responsibility, which allows them to either go in the route of donating some of the profits to charity, or they may actually only work with fair trade companies or, source through fair trade companies, which is a third party that actually monitors the welfare of manufacturers and factories. And then, or they may actually work with a factory that they're closely monitoring, whether they're visiting the factory on a normal basis, or they have some type of certification where they're making sure they're monitoring the work environment. And then last normally is the environmental friendly component, the eco-friendly component that people will integrate. And this is one of the most challenging approaches. So that's where it's normally put last. And one of the things I push is to try to flip that in some ways, really thinking from an environmental standpoint. And then from that environmental standpoint, then breaking down which is the most economically viable and, also incorporates that social responsibility. So when we talk about different fibers and their potential impacts, I like to start with the natural fibers and just kind of break down the cons, not necessarily talk about the pros, but the cons of the fiber, and then suggest alternatives. So with cotton uses a lot of chemicals in the cultivation from their pesticides that are used with planting, with growing the cotton. There is also serious water, amounts of water that is used in the process. And within that, a lot of the water pollution, or the water is polluted and it cannot be used. There are certain places that have forced labor as well. So some of the alternatives to using traditional cotton, and sometimes you hear this called as conventional cotton, are to try to shop more with organic cotton or fair trade cotton. A lot of times companies will be as transparent to show that their cotton is organic, or they may even mention the factory that creates the cotton. That's, to me, the most transparent a company will be. But again, it's just as you're shopping, looking for those specifics within the fiber content. When it comes to linen, there is chemical and water usage, but not nearly to the amount as what cotton uses. So a lot of times linen, hemp, and jute, and ramie, those are all considered pretty good fabrics to use, and a preferable fabric to use. And those fabrics are also made from natural, fast-growing, renewable plants. So they grow at a rapid pace and don't deplete the natural resource. When it comes to silk is typically made from the chrysalis of a moth. And so a lot of times that is against animal welfare. So it's more animal cruelty. So some of the alternatives to silk would be wild or ahimsa silk, which they are able, within this fiber, you're able to use it without killing the moth. Wool, alpaca, any other types of wool. The one main area that is focused on is how the animals are treated during this process of getting the fibers. And so the challenge with that is being able to monitor what's happening on farms. So there are different companies that potentially could do the monitoring as a third party, but a lot of times it's nice to really know have a direct relationship. As a designer, we like to try to get a little shop locally so you can have a direct relationship with the farmer to actually know where your fibers are coming from. But from a consumer standpoint, this is a challenge for you. So it's a lot of times that some companies are, again, transparent with where the actual fibers come from. And those companies may monitor the welfare practices on these farms that they source from. Leather, again, animal welfare, specifically through the processing of how leather is made. Some of the alternatives have been leather made from plants. Pinatex is one that is mentioned a lot. It's leather made from pineapple skin. There are leathers made from cactus and different other plants. So that is kind of preferred over sometimes if I'm okay. Vegan leathers that actually are made with chemical processing in these, or made with synthetics, sorry. The next, under manufactured fibers, viscose rayon or rayon is typically a fiber that is not preferred just because of the cultivation. It endangers forests. It also has chemical intensive and water intensive methods that are not good in the processing. And then the alternatives are lyocell and modal, which are both fibers that are made by a company called Lenzing. And they allow for a circular method. So there's no water waste, and the actual fiber is able to be produced with minimal waste and minimal chemical usage. And this fiber, or the lyocell and modal, are actually biodegradable, which is also a preferred benefit of fiber. Virgin polyester, which is just typically labeled polyester, is normally a no-no because it is made from non-renewable resources of petroleum. It's fully chemical, it's energy intensive, it releases greenhouse gases, it takes over close to 20 to 200 years to decompose, so it creates a lot of waste. Some alternatives, if you are gonna go the polyester route, is to potentially use a recycled polyester. And they're working on newer fibers that are derived from corn, or using secondhand polyester, repurposed polyester in some way. So those are all alternatives for polyester if you are going that route. Nylon, same issues that polyester has. There is more introduction into recycled nylon, but again, more development has to be introduced in that area. Polyester, nylon, spandex, acrylic, and imitation leather are all synthetic, so they all pretty much have the exact same issues. I'll say with spandex, a lot of us love our stretch. Our stretch and everything that clings or at least expands when we need it to, but it is highly toxic. It is also made from petroleum, which is a non-renewable resource, and again, contributes to waste and doesn't decompose. And again, same thing for acrylic, and then the same thing for imitation leather. So one of the goals is to prioritize environmental friendly fibers as we move forward, to integrate principles into selecting textiles. So selecting textiles with low water need, low energy usage, chemical usage needs to be low. Selecting fibers that are biodegradable. So if they're biodegradable, naturally they will decompose over time, which minimizes waste. Selecting fibers that potentially could, cruelty-free fibers. Selecting renewable fibers, and also making sure that if you are going a route of synthetics, to try to use recycled waste. One of the key things that is not talked about as much amongst fibers and fabrics is trying to use non-blended fibers, because it allows for better biodegradation, as well as it allows for the fiber to be recycled. So there are companies out there that it's not as readily, the infrastructure is not readily available at all times, but companies that will take back materials, if they know the pure content and it's 100%, they're able to break down those materials again and reuse them to create new materials. Some resources I like to just kind of bring up, or let's see if this shows. Yes. One website I like to refer people to is Sustain Your Style. So as you're trying to choose fibers, maybe looking and figuring out what your trade-off is and can you guys see this? I hope you can. What's your trade-off?
You can't see it.
You can't? Okay,
No.
hold on, let me get to that. Sorry, it went to my website. Let me just go to desktop. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this website, Sustain Your Style, can go through some of the different trade-offs, whatever your most impact you want to make. You can decide which route you want to go, and it lists fibers you can choose with underneath that category. And then they talk about fibers you may want to avoid depending on what your route is. Again, it depends on your trade-off and what you see as most important and which one has the least amount of negative impacts. Another website, sorry, let me get back to another website for those who are wanting to select apparel and it's overwhelming to actually go through everything and really look at every piece of fiber content. This company or this website, Good On You, allows you to take a look at different brands. Let me see if I can go this way. Well, they talk about different brands here, but you can shop by categories. So it's up to you on if you want to shop by fibers. They actually have, let me find it. Right now it just says pieces, but there is a way to shop by materials or their sustainable focus. Just because I'm presenting in front of you, I can't find that part, but okay, let me go back. Maybe I'll get back to the main. Here we go. Oh, here it is. They actually rate brands as well too. Depending on what the focus is. Hold on. Goodness, where is it? Just because I'm showing you guys, I can't find the page, but there is a page on here where you can shop based off of if you're wanting organics or if you're wanting cruelty-free fabrics, or if whatever your focus is within sustainable fiber, you can choose the brands and find brands that are selling products that are based off of your focus. So that's kind of what I teach as well as what I promote, and I'm opening this up for any questions you may have.
So Amna and I encourage everyone, if you are able to, putting yourself on camera, and if you have a question, feel free to shout it out. There's no formal process, or you feel free to write something in the chat as well, if you're more comfortable doing that. And then maybe, yeah, just a quick introduction of who you are so Jennifer has an understanding of where you're coming from.
Yes, I have a follow-up question on the concepts that you presented as a hierarchy, and hoping to flip that hierarchy among the three concepts. Now, are these concepts of activities? How would you characterize these concepts? Characterize them as economic activities that each one of them has to be evaluated in terms of viability, response, social responsibility, and economically friendly. Is that the term to use? Economic components of economic activities? That's the question.
I guess I don't see each one of those does have an economic impact. Yes, I agree with that.
Okay.
I do think that I'm finding brands, and I'm saying this again from a designer's perspective, brands are choosing to prioritize the environmental impact, meaning if they know they want to make a difference from an environmental standpoint, they will only select from a certain amount of fibers. Okay. And then out of those certain amount of fibers, they'll say, okay, it's very hard for brands to do all three, but they may say, well, let me see if I can get that fiber that's produced fair trade, or, you know, if I can work closely with the factory to make sure it's guaranteed that it's being made properly and employees are treated fairly. They will work that way. And then they know that naturally they are a company, so they have to make some form of a profit to sustain. They will then look at costing and see if there's how they can still maintain a profit, even if it is marking up their product, to make sure that they're able to still fulfill those other two pillars of sustainability.
Thank you. I understand that, and that all three of these focuses or components are in play all the time. At the same time, we have for-profit firms, and there also exists a nonprofit sector.
Yes.
So that's a intentional choice to de-emphasize the economic aspect of it and the profitability aspect of it, without ignoring the economic realities of it.
Yes. I do also think that in some ways there are brands that are prioritizing, but may not talk about it because it's just part of built in how they build their product. So they're still, yes. So it's not, actually, those are the brands to me that are doing it the right way. They don't have to brag that they're doing this because they're actually, that was just built into the mold of the model of the business. So that's where I'm going with that. Yes, it is still a priority.
It's certainly a priority, and in economics we teach that firms have one actual goal: to maximize what? Profitability.
Yes.
Maximize profitability.
Yes.
Okay.
But if you are a firm that is good, if you are I'll say this from a strong standpoint, if you are a firm that knows how to make good product, you're going to maximize in any way, and people are willing to pay that price.
Do the ask. Do the ask.
Yes.
Thank you. This is good.
Hi, this is Bruce Backus with Environmental Health and Safety. Thank you. I joined late, so and hi, Edmund, my friend Edmund there, to the St. Louis Village. The question I have, thank you for the links. Are there any brands or stores in town that you'd recommend as somebody who's more sensitive to these environmental issues in designing their clothing, or maybe where they purchase their clothing from?
Yeah, one thing I do still, even though this isn't mentioned as much in my PowerPoint, I do recommend secondhand shopping. I do recommend that. I highly recommend it. But I always talk about, in the business that we teach our students, we are in the business of making new products. So our goal is really to see how we can make a better product as we continue to develop. So I will say there's a brand, Indigenous. They're not local. That's the thing. I will say even in the US, it is difficult to find brands. And I say this because some of the research I've done in the past was really on smaller brands that are actually integrating these pillars of sustainability in a way that people are still able to afford the product. So it's challenging to find a lot of brands, but there are brands that do exist out there. And I feel like Good On You is the best website to kind of find that hub of different brands that are doing it. And it just depends on your focus, because one may say they only offer natural materials, and one may say they only offer organics, or one may go with only recycled synthetics if they are using it. Again, some brands still are blending them. So it's, it's a trade-off on different things, because there are brands that are using 100% of fibers because they want to make sure that it's going to be biodegradable or recyclable. So it's a large spectrum. It's a lot of information. So that's where I normally send people just to Good On You to kind of see the different brands that are available.
Oh, thank you.
No problem.
I have a question about, so, we know that there are obviously health impacts with creating fibers from petroleum, but what about like wearing those fibers? So
yes, another aspect of that is, I always say fabrics are so important because they're our second skin. We come out wearing fibers, and unless you're on a nudist beach, you're wearing some type of material. Yes, microplastics are released from polyester materials and synthetics. So that is something that I think we all know from any plastic. In our water system, yes, it is put into our skin. And one other thing with some of the toxic chemicals that are released, a lot of times when the landfill is full of synthetic fibers and they don't decompose, they burn them. When they burn them, that's like toxic chemicals that are released. And that's why so many of us have so many breathing issues. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that fibers are that only reason. There are many other pollution reasons, but that also contributes to that.
And I'm sure that this is like, I don't expect you to have an answer for this. I'm sure that there are lots of people with different opinions, but is it better to thrift, have secondhand something made from these harmful fibers, or to purchase new something that is made with organic cotton or something that's healthier for your body?
That is definitely a challenge, because I think it's going to be based off of your priorities as a consumer. And it also may be based off of your economic standpoints too, as well. I think it's much cheaper to shop thrift than it is to buy organics. So I feel that people do a little bit of all or both if they can afford it. I'll say that. So I don't have a preference over one or the other. I try not to, just because it's an argument and a debate that can go on and on and on, and it goes circular over and over. My goal, I always try to look at all the possibilities. I personally am limiting my polyester purchases from new things. But that's just something I personally want to do, because I see the petroleum as a higher issue than some of the others. But, it just depends on what you value most.
We have a question in the chat. And if I'm speaking over somebody, I can't see everyone. So if you unmuted yourself and I'm talking over you, just interrupt me at any time. But Cassie asked, is there any thoughts on how access fits into this? Do we see folks with less economic buying power buying fewer high quality items, or has the fashion industry pushed fast fashion to the extent that most people are just buying fast fashion? Are any companies trying to target low income people with higher quality items on the long lasting pitch? I know there are a lot of questions.
No, yeah. I always say this. I think people associate quality with price, and that's not always the case. I've seen high priced items, designer items that are made low quality. And I think it's really the name that it's being purchased. I've actually, from working in industry, a lot of times they all use the same factories and they're made with the same materials. It's just one has a different name over the other. So I'm not saying that is the only case. There are high quality products that are expensive, and they're expensive for a reason, because of the quality and craftsmanship that goes into it. I think that it is accessible. I think it's a matter of the consumer knowing the impacts. I think knowledge plays a huge factor in all of it, just to know what the impacts are. Again, it goes back to some of the secondhand shopping. Anybody could afford that. And a lot of times I find that even some people with lower income, that's something they've always been doing. And it's newer for that one at the higher income to go and shop secondhand. So I think it's just, again, I just feel bad. I feel like a politician up here. It truly depends on what it is you're looking for, because there are linens that are out there, inexpensive. You can purchase them. They last forever. They're made in high quality. There's wools. There's so many different fabrics that are out there that you can buy 100% that content. It's just a matter of us paying attention to it. And it's not priced at a high price. And that was something that I truly wanted to assess when I did my research on these smaller brands. So many people think of it as not being something that you could afford. But again, when you go to Good On You, there are some easy things that you can purchase that are cheaper. And then there are some things that are really expensive. So it's just a range.
Rosie asked in the chat, are there different textiles that are better or worse for the end consumer to be able to repair their clothes or products either on their own with simple sewing or by taking to a local tailor?
I would say no. I say that because, yes, I do feel that a lot of man-made fabrics are more durable. So they do last longer. But there are natural fibers that are less durable and but they're repairable. So there actually is big business for mending. I always say that because I actually owned an alterations and tailoring shop in the Central West End a while. And I feel bad because it's a lost industry that you can't find people that know how to do it. But we have actually an alum that actually owns a local mending shop called Little Cliff. I'm putting a plug in for, but Little Cliff, they take anything and can make it so cute and wearable, even if it's patched. And the style is to be a little more eclectic and patchwork. And she does a lot of mending of the knits and mending of the wools that may have moth holes in it. I get moth holes in everything. So there are places that are able to mend, and that's the push, is to get back to mending. I think there's so much that's one of the positive things that COVID has brought. I don't even know if I should even say that as a sentence, but it has brought us back to the basics. And the interest in sewing right now for us in our department is crazy because of all the people that had to learn to sew for making masks. And then again, just going back to the basics of keeping what you have and repairing what you have so it'll last longer.
I'd like to just add that even though my mom had a professional career, she always had a sewing machine. And I remember the day that she finally declared that, nope, she was not going to be repairing our socks anymore. Sewing up the socks. And then that sewing machine disappeared. Don't remember to have any. Okay, so thank you for, is that Little Cliff, CLIFF?
Yes, Little Cliff, yes.
Where is it?
You know, she just opened, she normally was doing pop-up shops everywhere. I need to hear, I can look it up and I will make sure I get that information to you. She did just open a local brick and mortar, but I think it's in collaboration with another business. So I need to just look up her brick and mortar now.
There it is. Thank you.
I think it's in Foundry. Is that what it's
yeah,
called?
she would. I know she was doing pop-up shops, but I didn't know if she's actually located there. Is that where it shows?
I'll have
Where
to
is it?
double check. Oh, Cassie's saying Shenandoah.
Okay. Yeah, I knew she used to be in Foundry and do the pop-up shops, but I'm glad she just got a brick and mortar that she has a space that she does it out of.
And Holes in Woolies. Wow.
Yes.
Repairing holes in buoys. Terrific. Thank you
Yes.
very, very much.
You're welcome.
So we have one more question that I'm going to ask. And while you answer that, I'm going to launch our last poll because it's kind of related. But Cassie is asking, are there any ideas about how WashU can apply our buying power to these issues, and what are some of the big opportunities? So I'll let you answer that while I launch this next poll.
I think what I've heard actually in talking to different people, the push for just double checking what is worn in the uniforms across the campus, or not uniforms, but employee wear. And just seeing if there could be a more sustainable approach to what's being purchased. Most, I'm saying this without even knowing, most uniforms are some form of polyester because of the durability. And not saying that not saying that that's not the best alternative, because you may need them to last longer, but just seeing if there are other options out there. There are some companies that it's actually difficult to find the information. I'm actually been looking into that more, but that have a cradle to cradle approach to their materials, which means that even the polyesters are being able to be broken down and used in some other form, whether it's not even in another material, but extending the life of it. So that is another approaches to what the materials are that are being used in the uniforms, and maybe assessing if there needs to be a new approach on the materials that are used.
Wow. Wow.
So the poll has shown us that, first of all, that everyone learned from this,
Oh, great.
from this presentation, which is amazing and encouraging. And also that the majority of folks here are either responsible for making purchasing decisions for their departments or know who is, which leads us into an actionable item from this meeting. If you are the person who makes the decisions, we hope that you're able, you feel empowered with this information to make more sustainable decisions for your department. And if you know who does make those decisions, that you take this information to them and make the case for the triple bottom line and the true cost of things. It's not always just the dollar amount that we see. Yeah, that's kind of, we hope that you'll, feel equipped with this knowledge to take some action. We do want to get to a couple really quick announcements, and then we would like to allow, if anyone in the meeting wants to share some information, we can do that. So I'm just going to share my screen again really quickly. I hope this works this time. Yeah, sorry, I don't know. I'm just going to leave it like this. So very quickly, I think Heather is going to throw the link to this in the chat. We are offering holiday lights recycling. If you have old holiday lights that are no longer functioning or broken, please check out the link. We have several locations across campuses where we're collecting these lights. Currently, we have collection bins in Chinook Pavilion and in the East End garage, just inside the entrance to Chinook Pavilion, and then several locations across the medical campus. And hopefully by the end of this week, we'll have more locations on West and North campus. And we will publish those on the event page once those are confirmed. And I can't see the chat. Maybe we have some of that information on here already. And Heather, would you like to talk about Teams for a moment?
Yes, just a reminder that we are still trying to utilize our Teams channels. I think that Amna and I are both guilty of forgetting that Teams even exists, but we would like to continue utilizing that as a way to keep in contact with each other. So I'm putting, oops, I just muted myself. I'm putting links to some tutorials in the chat for people who might need help setting it up. There's a WashU link, and then there is a YouTube link that I'll be putting in as well. Oh, I keep not doing actual links. I will send a link in a second, and then we are also going to, we've been using MailChimp for our SAT newsletter, but we're going to switch to an Outlook group instead. We just wanted to let everybody know that that change would be happening and to keep an eye out for that.
And then we just wanted to share the dates for our next SAT meetings. If you want to, stick these in your calendar, we will have one March 30th, June 8th, and then September 14th. And we're thinking, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't say anything officially, but it would be nice to do a gathering in September, and it will, be determined by what's going on in the world and how things are looking. And I hope September is looking good, but yeah, so save those dates. And then finally, we wanted to go over the extended absence reminder. So if you are going to be out of town for, if you are going to be out of town or out of your office for, an extended period of time, we do have this kind of checklist that you can go through to reduce your energy usage while you are away. So making sure all of your windows are properly closed and locked, and all window treatments are closed. Turning off copiers, printers, and unplugging appliances that aren't going to be used for a while. That includes even things like toasters. And then if you have your computer set up, like plugged into a power strip, just turn those off, turn down your thermostat. And then, if you do work in a lab or, I guess any office, making sure that there aren't specific protocols for certain equipment, and making sure that you are following those rules. Some things are never supposed to be shut off, so we want to be mindful of that. Yeah, and then finally, I think we have 2 minutes. If anyone has any announcements or anything that they would like to share with the group, this is the time to do that. So you can unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and share.
I would love to. I'm Becca Gilberg. I work for Danforth Parking and Transportation, and I'm the Sustainable Transportation Coordinator. We have a commuter platform that we launched right before COVID. So we're now actually launching it because, things happened. And I think it's perfect for sustainability because transportation is such a large, component of sustainability. So this has carpool and matching, and this is good for anyone with a WUSTL key. So employees, students, anybody from Med Campus and Danforth. So you can match carpools for one time or ongoing, and matches you based on your schedule and all these different preferences. You can do, I'm going to put it in the chat actually, bike pools. So finding people, it's like carpooling with bikes, just power and number, safety, a sense of community. There's also a ride board, which I'm pushing pretty heavy right now. So for people, especially students over break who are traveling far distances, or even just to the airport, you can post to the ride board of the dates you're leaving and coming, and where you're going, and any details about yourself. So if you could share that information, it would be amazing. We also have some flyers we can share with you if you'd like. Just anything you can do, because it's going to be useful if we have people using it. But if there's no one posting rides to the ride board and no one saving their carpool trips, it's not as helpful. So it will also be used in the future for competitions. So spread the word. Oh, there's also an interactive transportation map. So I went out and got all these GIS layers from all over St. Louis for transportation related stuff I thought would be helpful. I don't think there's anywhere you can find all of this together, like carpool parking, commuter lots, and just all kinds of stuff like that. The interactive map is more specific to Danforth, but all the other things you guys can use it. So thank you.
Thanks, Becca. We have one more quick question from Bruce. He asks, has COVID changed people's fashion sense in terms of style as well as comfort and types of materials being worn? And Jennifer, you are muted, just so you know.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I missed what you said. I had a
No, you're
coworker
fine.
asking me a question.
No worries. Really quickly, Bruce asked, has COVID changed people's fashion sense in terms of style as well as comfort and types of materials being worn?
Yes, definitely more relaxed. And even I saw one of the chats, someone asked about scrubs and rethinking scrubs. We've been doing projects. Actually, one of our latest project was Fashion Cares About, and students are really looking into what they value and how that's incorporated into fashion. So students are thinking about how to redesign scrubs or how to redesign different areas, different products based off of what people need right now at the moment. And I'd love to tell anyone who wants to collaborate or needs us to do research, we love it. We welcome it. If you have any challenging issues, let us do some real work. We like that. We like the real world work. So.
I love that. Thank you all so much for attending. And Jennifer, thank you so much for taking the time to present to us. This is like incredibly valuable information that literally affects our everyday lives. So thank you so much for your work and for sharing it with us. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. And if you didn't have lunch yet, please go enjoy some lunch. And Bruce, it's so nice to see you. This is probably your last SAT meeting as a staff person, but we hope you keep coming back.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you for having me too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Jennifer.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.